The second video, we're in Zbrush, and what I want to do is just kind of show you basically after you've saved as a ZTL file that you would want to bring it back and open it up. So I'm just going to basically demystify everything so when I'm not there, not to ask questions, to you know how to do this. So we're going to import a mesh, and here's the wheel of death. You can tell I have a Mac. We're going to go to Zbrush, and we're looking for that ZTL file. All right, so I'm kind of just doing this by accident, so you can see I cannot import. So what we're going to do is hit Load Tool. So I'm just going to kind of show you the right and wrong way to bring in these files. Okay, so we hit Open, and I'm going to drag in my fish, let go, and immediately go up to Edit. Okay. Now, if you don't do that and you keep clicking on the surface, you'll have multiple fish, and basically you have to kind of start a new document, and typically I tell students just restart Zbrush from scratch. All right, so we're going to click around, and if you notice, we'll go up to our geometry. This stuff is still operational, and if we ever go to our texture map is still solid. All right. Rotate over that. Should probably, if we updated that, create from a higher polygon, it'd probably be better. But we're not really super interested in the UV map of that, so we're going to work on that later in Substance Painter. All right. So, anyways, I was just showing you what that, how to open it up. You're not importing an OBJ. You're actually loading the tool, which is a ZTL format. I have no idea what that means. It's just a Zbrush format. All right, so what we're going to do is kind of pretty exciting. We're going to go ahead and project on there the texture onto it. And again, this was taken off the internet just for educational purposes so that you guys can have something to project on there. This is the only image I could find that was kind of a flat, kind of a illustrative or a scientific look to it. All right, so right now we have it on subdivision 1. We have UV mapped it. I'm going to go all the way up to the highest level. I was projecting onto the lowest level, and it's coming awful results, and I realized, oh, it's subdivision 5. Again, Shift D to go all the way down, and D to go even higher. Now you can go up to higher divisions, to 6 and 7. We may do that if we need to, but right now. So we are going to kind of jump in between our mouse, or 3-mouse button, down to our stylus in just a second. And I have a Wacom Intuos, if that's how you say them, Wacom, however you want to say it. And so what we're going to do now is bring in the texture and project it onto the surface in Zbrush. Again, make sure you have X on, so it does that symmetry. You can see the little dot hovering on both sides. Again, our fish is not quite right. It's probably looks more like a trout or something like that. But again, we don't have it at hand, so I'm just going to, this is an artistic version, and I'm doing it really quickly. I would typically spend a good 8 hours on a model, or even 40 hours in some cases. All right, so what we're going to do is go to texture, and I'm going to import a texture. All right, so I go back to those files that I've given you. We're going to go to Redfish, and I have that image grabbed from the internet, and we're going to select it so it's dominant here, the very top one. And we're going to go ahead and hit, basically, if you can see I'm hovering over it, says turn on spotlight. So it's really intuitive stuff that you pop on and off. You can see it. All right, so you can see on and off here, and it's pretty cool. So what we're basically doing is trying to line up this fish onto Zbrush so we can start using it to help us cheat and sculpt a little bit. So you can see I can click on the white, and you can see that kind of hot wheel will follow me, but I can kind of line this up the best I can. And so there's all these kind of different tools here. There's like a liquefy. There's basically, the only one I really use is the scale, and it's kind of scaling this up. And again, trying to line it up, and like so, we did a pretty good job using Maya to line this up. And you can roll over, and you can see which each one is. It tells you. I'm going to try to find liquefy. All right. And I cannot, my eyes are so bad I can't see what that says. A nice smudge. Don't want that. Opacity. All right, so opacity is good so you can see what you're kind of projecting on. That's really good. Just knock that down. That's actually a really good one, opacity, so you can see how to line that up. It helps out. I swear to God, there's a liquefy and I am nudge. That's probably the best. So anyways, I'm going to show you how to nudge. You can see from back behind it, kind of move this stuff so it fits. So you can see exactly with that tail how nudge works. All right, so I'm not going to get too crazy with this interface. Hit Command Z and kind of move that around. All right, so what we want to do now is project this texture right onto that, and we hit X, so it's going to be doing it on both sides, and this is going to be really helpful for the little finer points that we're going to do etching onto the surface. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and hit the magic key, which is Z on your keyboard. So go ahead and hit Z. One of the things that you want to do right off the bat is not do Z add, you want to do RGB. Okay, turn the Z off, and this is paint with alpha. I don't know what the hell that is. I have it on a standard brush. I think you're fine. One of the things I would probably turn this to white. So when we're projecting it on there, it's not red. It'll kind of scare you. All right, so what we're going to do, we have Z on, have a draw size pretty big. I'd go up to maybe 100, and then we're just going to click on here. You can literally see I'm basically spray tanning or spray painting onto the surface. Right, that black is a little wonky. Again, it would have been awesome if we had actually caught this fish, had it in class, and be able to get some really beautiful shots. And when you take photos of fish, make sure you use a paper towel. We'll talk about that and get it not so glistening and get the best shot and diffuse light so there's not a lot of specularity. All right, so we want to turn off the spotlight, so we're going to hold down Shift Z and turn that off. And voila, so we're going to go over here and spin this around. You can see it's kind of updating it real time. I'm going to go ahead and make my draw size smaller so I don't accidentally do anything. So I'm going to hit the frame. All right, so you can see our fish looks like something from the A's or something. It's not a lot of high fidelity. All these bumps are not in here yet. It's just literally like Christmas paper stuck onto the surface of a box. But this does give us some clarity on how we're going to start sculpting this stuff. All right, and you'll see it's not the highest resolution and so forth. And also you can see how underneath here it went through. Now that may be an issue all the way through. You may be trying to clone and pull this underneath, but we'll definitely do the same technique in Substance Painter. We're just going to project onto the surface and keep pushing through. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and we're going to work on some certain things. Now this is where I start to shift using my mouse and also my tablet to kind of start sculpting. So it's going to get, you're going to kind of swear and get upset with the tablet, but it is definitely a tool that you want to utilize in this part. I don't use it all the time, but I definitely use it for sculpting. All right, so we're going to get out of the RGB. We're going to just go to Z add or turn the RGB off. All right, so Z add is actually sculpting. RGB is just a color, which is exactly what it indicates, red, green, and blue. This is kind of the values of color. So we just want to do Z add. We have our draw on and our edit on also. So we have just our standard tool, and we have the stroke is dots. We don't want that. If we do go into color, we would use color, but you can totally do all your color in ZBrush, but I definitely want to use Substance Painter. I want you to kind of learn how to make things gritty and dirty and ambient occlusion and all that. So both have some really powerful tools, but kind of teaching you a lot of things in a very short amount of time. So we're going to use standard and stroke. All right, so I'm going to move this tool, and I may not have shown you this, but the snap to ortho view, you hold down your Shift and That's how we got the flat fish. I'm sorry, I should have shown you that while we were doing that. All right, so I'm going to zoom in. Again, you don't want to zoom in here. You'll start sculpting. And we're going to use our move tool and get in close. So you can see our resolution is not that great. This is off the internet. So if we had taken 4K or 8K image, the textures are going to be phenomenal. And so what we're going to do when we project this on in Substance, we're actually going to make a bump map out of this. So all these high ridges will actually start to show this. But higher ridges, anything over 2 millimeters, you definitely want to sculpt out in Zbrush, not in Substance Painter. Is kind of my rule of thumb. And again, there's thousands of videos out there. Definitely learn on your own accord too. But again, this is just really quickly getting you acclimated to a very fast pipeline. All right. So I have a huge ass brush here. I'm going to go ahead and go down to my draw size here. And basically I'm going to just see if my Wacom tablet is working. So I'm going to go up on the size here. And I'm just going to go in here and I've got my standard on. So it takes a little while to get used to. So I'm just going to go in here and basically start pulling this up. So it's a little difficult to see. So I'm just going to keep building that up. All right. So if you don't believe me, there's nothing happening. You can start to see this texture starting to pull out. All right. So I do it over here also. All right. And the cool thing about the stylus, the harder you push, the bigger the draw that you'll have. All right. So just start sculpting. You can always smooth this stuff out if it's horrible. I'm going to hit shift. That was horrible right there. So you can use your shift. But I'm just kind of arcing these up or pulling these up. All right. And don't be shy. This is your first model. It's going to be horrible with your first one. It'll get better and better as you start developing more. All right, and so I've added some geometry, and sometimes it's good to turn off the texture too. We can get into that, showing you how to do it a little bit later. All right, I'm just really trying to build up some surface here. All right, so I always kind of jump back and forth from my mouse to my stylus. So everyone's different. Now I'm going to go to my move tool. And we're just going to start pinching this stuff out. So I want, as you notice, this is more of a spike. And so I'm just going to pull these out. And we'll actually use a pinch tool in just a second. Maybe this is working. The move tool is working pretty good here. I don't know how sharp or how deadly these are, but we'll just go ahead and start getting them, pulling these out. Okay. And you can, we also can go up on the draw size here. And we can notice in between here, it's we can move those down. All right. Start moving. All right, so we've got some, again, you can see how quickly this is. It's very intuitive. It's literally like you're drawing with, we're working with clay. All right. So I think this would probably go up. Again, big brushes are helpful. All right, so now I'm going to go to a pinch tool. And let's see. And sometimes you can just type in P or pinch. I think it's all alphabetical here. Looking for, there's a nudge, which is a good one also. Pinch. All right, so we're going to use a pinch tool. I'm just going to go up here and see if I can make this even sharper. So just going to this point, you can start to see, hopefully this stuff will get to a finer point. Okay, that one really definitely got to a finer point. And I think the defense mechanism is how sharp these are. All right, so we'll try to pinch these up. All right, and then, I would pinch these up too. So they're going up, they're going to get smaller and smaller. and these are going to get a little bit more pinched. All right. I went smooth them out. All right, so I'm going to kind of move around. You can start to see a little bit of this. This is awfully a thick membrane here. So we can actually go to our remove tool. I'm going to go back to our remove tool and try to push this down. Again, this is, I'm going really quickly. I'm not going to go too in depth with this, but go up on the draw size here. And now I'm using my mouse. Just going to kind of push that in. And it's, see how quickly, the dangers of this, I'm actually starting to alter what I had modeled, so I'm just kind of pushing this in. All right, and this is the cool thing is we can go down to Shift D and to a lower geometry, and we can push this in, make it thinner. We want this really thin. I think this is like almost paper thin. If I remember when I caught these, they're really, fins are thin. Fins are thin. Say that quickly. Get an A+. All right, so I'm just pushing these in. Especially this is really thick. All right, I'm not going to spend too much time. I guess we should have done this in Maya. I should have made these paper thin versus now. So I hit D and go all the way up. All right, so you can see what I have here. Some of it's kind of not the greatest looking here. All right, so you can see this definitely needs to be flattened out here at the front end. It's starting to look a little wavy gravy here. So definitely make sure this is proper. But again, we got it thin. A lot of this stuff that's turning up white, don't worry about that. We're never going to use this texture for the final. We're just using it as kind of a starting point on our ZBrush. All right, so I'm going to go back to my standard. And you can just kind of move around. You can start, you know, after a while we'll probably turn it off so you can really start to work on. This is looking pretty bad here. You probably want to move this out. That's a huge brush that I'm using. Let's see. All right. And anytime you can hit Shift, is this looking awful, you can kind of smooth it down, right? So just baby steps. This is going to look pretty bad at the beginning, and I'm going really fast, so I'm not spending too much time, but I'm definitely making a point, making sure it's quite rigid from afar that you can see that. All right, and your colors are going to start to distort because we're moving it around. Definitely did that probably too much, but I think I've spent a little bit too much thinning that out. I should have done that in Maya. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and start some clay buildup here, and we'll probably stop with the gill area and then move on. All right, so hit that, and we're gonna zoom in. I'm using my mouse. If you're really good with your mouse tablet, there are buttons on the stylus, and you can get pretty good. I just haven't had the time, and the more time that you put on these things, the better. All right, so we're going to move this in, zoom in a little bit more here. Okay, and so I'm just going to go over here to clay buildup. I don't like the standard tool anyways. I was just using that just to kind of show how to make those spikes on the fin on the top. So I'm going to go up to clay buildup. This is actually one of my favorite tools because it's really quickly able to build up surface. All right, so this is really where I love ZBrush. All right. So I'm just going to kind of keep building up this surface. This is a tiny little brush. So the only bad thing is maybe with this white, let's go to red. And it makes it a little bit easier to see what the heck you're modeling, okay? Sometimes it's just hard. And try not to accidentally select the buttons like I was on the stylus just a second ago. So I'm just building this up, and you just really see it with this red. It's a lot easier, and we can go back to, shift it back to white in a second. All right, and I'm just gonna go ahead, smoothen out a little bit. Okay, it's just building up some surface, and then we'll do the same here. And don't be afraid like what this is going to look like. Once we slap on some textures and once we get into Substance Painter, it's going to look amazing. All right, so I'm just kind of rolling over that. You start to see the shape of everything. So again, just kind of keep clay build up here. All right, and then sometimes you want to reproject it on after a while because this stuff will start to get degraded as you start building it up. All right, I'm just going to hit shift. I'm just building it up. We're not really worried about the scales. That will be later in Substance Painter. All right, so let's go over here. I'm just going to start building up this lip, which is huge. Huge membrane here, and then there's a little cut right here. Just keep building it up. All right, we're got a little mid-mass here. Again, if we had the fish here, it would be awesome. We could just walk over and see where this stuff is building up. All right, so it's totally wrong here. I don't really see a lot, so I'm just building up a ridge line here, ridge line here. Again, you can just explore on your own. You don't have to follow me verbatim. Just kind of get the idea. This is what my students do, is just kind of watch for a little bit. Hit Apple Z real quick. I went crazy there. The stylus went crazy. All right, so I'm just building up some surface here. Just something that looks like texture, ridge lines, and so forth. All right, and then the draw size, you can hit S. We'll bring up the size of your brush. So I always like to smooth it out just a little bit. Just gently nudge it out. And so we're going to go over a clay buildup, and I'm going to hit S and show you how the tool works in real time. It's right there. So that's a really nice tool to have. So we're going to do clay buildup around the eyes, this mass around the eyes. Okay. It's going to look horrible when you lay it down. It's just like clay. You just slap it on, and then you start using a sponge or whatever and start to smooth it out. So we're just going to kind of build up this nostril. I think this is a nostril here. Could be wrong. I know someone's going to pull me over the side and tell me the proper anatomy part of this fish, and I'm going to be so embarrassed. Anyways, we're going to just develop ridge lines on this, some sort of anatomy. All right, and I have this right underneath my tablet, which is not the best placement. Again, if you have a huge monitor, you definitely want a huge monitor when you're doing this, to put your tools over onto one side. Okay, I'm smoothing this out. I'm holding down Shift and just smoothing it, building it up, and over and over and over, and hit Shift. And basically, if you hit Shift too long, it'll just go completely flat. So I'm just pulling this out. All right, looking pretty good so far. And so this is where we'll start using the pinch tool. We're going to go back to my pinch tool. We'll probably stop in a second. Pinch tool. Now over here, I've got a pretty big brush here, and so you can use your pinch tool here and create a better line. You see that geometry starting to form, and especially up here we can do a pinch line. So these gills, I did not model where they will actually really flange out. I didn't think ahead, like with blend shapes and stuff like that. Don't know how close this VR simulation that you're making, what that's going to look like. All right, I'm going to pinch in here where it looks like it's sharp. Okay, a little pinching in here. All right, so I'm going to stop right there. We're going to kind of look around and you can start to see some shapes of that face is really starting to protrude out. All right, we should be able to turn on and off. So next we'll work on this ridge line, some little small details here, try to get my brush to work properly. We're gonna work on this, and we're gonna probably stop. That's probably 2 hours worth for you guys. We're gonna turn on our not white chalk skin shader. Okay, you start to see, let's move up to the face, zoom in. All right, so you can start to see something pretty interesting. So it probably this needs to be pulled out. Those eyes are pretty flat. We can bulge those out and so forth. So it's pretty blown out. I kind of like it with the red. But again, redfish, there's all types of different colors. The ones in North Panama City or Northern Panhandle are different. Different than this washed out one. All right, so I'm going to stop there. Again, we're going to work on the rest of it in just a second.